Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning to all of you tuning in from across the US. Welcome to the Ivy webinar. We're actually going to go ahead and get started right on time today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tara. I work with Ivy, and Ivy is the leading software and community for interior designers. And designers use Ivy to create and send proposals, generate tear sheets, invoice clients online, track and bill their hours, and all of those other accounting and administrative tasks. And every Wednesday, we host a webinar for designers to learn about the different ways that you can manage your business more efficiently and more profitably. And today, I'm really excited to welcome my dear friend, Erin to the Ivy webinar stage. She's become a close friend of mine, and she's one of the most talented creatives I know. She's a multidisciplinary artist and founder of the wallpaper company Relativity Textiles, and she's a world traveler. And she draws her expertise from 20 years of traveling abroad and 10 years running a company that leads cultural immersion trips to Morocco. And she's fluent in Arabic and holds an MFA from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. So she's super impressive. And she's a mother of two, and she's really excited to give you real world advice today on how to organize your travel, budget in advance, and make meaningful relationships with vendors while you're sourcing for products abroad. So today, Erin will be presenting for the next 45 minutes, and will answer all of your questions live at the end of her presentation. And for those of you who are interior designers and you're not yet using Ivy, I encourage you to stick around after her presentation so my colleague Risa can jump on and walk you through the Ivy software to show you what Ivy is all about. So without further ado, I'm happy to welcome you, Erin. Erin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Tara. Thank you so much for asking me to do this. It's really exciting to be able to share this kind of niche knowledge with interior designers and just creative people in general. So I'm so thankful that you asked me to do a webinar. It's my first time, so.
Yes, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna jump off. You're in great hands, everyone.
Thanks, Tara. Okay, so I believe that you guys can see me and you can also see my screen. I'm gonna roll through a couple of different slides. So I'm here to talk to you about mastering the planning of travel trips for sourcing. I really did not start out with the intention of becoming an interior designer or being in the interior design field or even textile design field, although now I own a wallpaper company. I've actually been traveling since I was 17 years old. I went to a really unique high school, and we were able to go on these 1 month long travel excursions starting when I was a really young age. So I have a kind of different background than most people are aware. If you know my company, Relativity Textiles, you might know that all of the patterns in the collections are globally inspired. So loosely, that means each one has a country of origin that's not the United States. And I draw from all of this research that I did in my master's program about different techniques and different types of craft processes around the world. So I'll get into a little bit later how all of that kind of combines, because I do a lot of different things and they all kind of help each other out. But let's just go really quick through our agenda for the webinar. So first of all, making time for travel is probably hard for all of you. If you have a bucket list and a bunch of places that you've always wanted to go, most of the time what it feels like is that it's a dream, it's a hope, it's something that you want to do, but you don't know when are you going to be able to accomplish that trip, because we're all so busy. Like it says here, making time for design is hard enough, let alone taking 10 days off of work to go abroad. So I'm going to help you guys figure out how to make time, how to build your itinerary around different design events, and finding some travel partnerships that might help you piggyback on something that's already happening, as well as what I find to be a really, really key point for a successful trip is to travel with a photographer. So that might mean that your partner, spouse, boyfriend, best friend is the photographer and you're traveling together, or it might mean that you actually build into your budget to hire someone to travel with you, and why you should do that. Also, how to incorporate service. I like to do some kind of community service project or even short half-day excursions to a place where I can meet local people, meet local kids, and get involved in the daily life of people in that place. And then obviously we all want to know, how do we find vendors? So if I'm sourcing rugs or furniture, how do I build those lasting relationships? And how can I travel in order to establish those relationships? And then the last thing we'll talk about really briefly is international shipping, because once you get there, how do you get everything home that you've found, all your treasures? So a little introduction. I briefly said that I started traveling when I was 17 years old. My first trip was actually to Mexico, and I drove from Salt Lake City to the tip of Baja California with a group of high school students, and spent 1 month traveling around Baja and camping. My second trip was my senior year in high school. I went to Vietnam and I spent a month there. And then, you know, after that, after high school, I had what I call like a paradigm shift, right? Because you leave the place where you're most familiar and you realize there's an enormous world out there, and that people aren't like the types of people you've been seeing your whole life. So it was really an eye-opening experience for me, and I never really wanted to go back to living that kind of comfortable existence where everything was the same. I really wanted to keep traveling and keep seeing new things. So throughout the years, I studied abroad in Morocco. That was where I began to learn Arabic. And this is in a post 9/11 climate, because that happened when I was in college. Then I ended up majoring in Middle Eastern Studies, double major in art and Middle Eastern Studies, and traveled to Costa Rica, Spain, Australia, and eventually made it back to Morocco, where I met my husband. We were married for 10 years, and I went back and forth to Morocco every summer. So I've been there in total about 15 times. And we ran a tourism company together since 2008. I've been going as the facilitator of these tours. And what you don't realize is that even though you're on the ground for, let's say, 2 weeks at most, maybe even a month, it takes all year to plan for a trip like that, especially when you have 21 people coming with you. So I come from that side of things where I'm organizing not only for myself to go abroad, but I'm taking 21 people with me. I have to figure out transportation for 21 people, and these were high school students. So there's also a degree of sensitivity and buffering their culture shock in a place like Morocco, because it's so foreign. So this is where my expertise comes in, as I did that for many, many years. And then once I sort of switched my lifestyle around after graduate school and wanted to pursue really being an artist, I discovered that I could I had so many people asking me, can you take us to Morocco? Can you show us around? We would love to buy some rugs there. Do you know anyone? And these questions were so frequent, I thought, why don't I just do once a year, take 10 people, anyone who's a design enthusiast or an artist or a photographer. You don't have to be an interior designer, and you don't have to be sourcing for clients. It seems like everyone wants to go to Morocco. So I did a trip a year and a half ago with a group of 7 designers. And it was really wonderful and amazing to get to network with them and get to know them at the same time, introduce them to a new culture. And I kind of see myself as the cultural translator. So as an American, I'm showing you how Moroccan culture is different, but why things are the way they are, and the history, the food, all of those things are being introduced. So I wrote a little something about like why I travel, and I've talked a little bit about it, but I like to kind of outline first because we're going to go through a lot of steps that makes this more manageable. But I like to first begin with sort of your values or your standards of integrity, which are things that you hold really true to, close to your heart, that motivate you to want to do certain things, whether it's start a business, build a family, change jobs, or even plan a trip. So some of my values, which are travel related and business related, are to be a global community member, to build long lasting friendships like I did with those designers that came with me to Morocco, and also some friendships I made along the way while in Morocco with Moroccan people, to experience something unfamiliar and even uncomfortable. I think a lot of times people want to stay in a Western hotel with air conditioning and Coca-Cola and ice and a swimming pool and a spa, and all of those things feel really familiar. It helps you feel comfortable and safe, but I encourage people in certain settings to really get out of their comfort zone a little bit more, and I feel like it helps you get in touch with another culture a lot better than and not asking you to like go live the daily life of a Moroccan person, but at least try and understand their way of life, rather than just being a tourist. So those are my values. That's something I aim to do when I travel and when I guide people. We always come home with a renewed appreciation for what you have and perhaps things that you take for granted. And I also believe that short breaks from our daily grind breathes new energy into your creative process, whether you're a designer or an accountant. It just relieves you from those daily monotonous tasks, and you get to do something different and come back appreciating your spot in your office once more. Obviously, one big goal of mine, a long-term goal, is to be a leader in the industry of textile design. And so I take cues from companies like Kravet, who have been around for 100 years, and the CEO and vice president of those companies are constantly traveling around the world, scouring the globe for historical textiles that inform their new collections, because what's old always becomes new again, and what's new is always reliant on the old. So that's some reason why I travel, is I want to be connected to the whole history of makers and textile designers. And I want to research these things to be an expert on the topic. So when someone says, what is this pattern? What is this wallpaper pattern inspired by? I can say, oh, it's a block printing technique from 6th century Japan. Those are important things to me. So I hadn't really thought about it until this morning, but what I want you to try and do is consider taking this time as I'm talking and as I'm introducing this idea of SMART goals for traveling, and really write something down. Write down a goal that you have as I'm talking through one of my goals that I'm using as an example, or using for the purpose of storytelling and teaching. I want you to actually put into action some of these things, because I know every single person that's watching this has somewhere they want to go or have wanted to go their whole life or for a very long time. And it makes it easier if you sort of take action on it while it's fresh in your mind. So if you want to travel, how can you make time? Or more importantly, how can you save money for that? So SMART goals are something that I learned through the process of starting a business. I hired a life coach who was simultaneously helping me with business stuff and also just trying to dream big and come up with a way to reach and achieve what I was dreaming. So I'm going to just spell these out, and then we're going to kind of talk through how they relate to travel. So SMART acronym, S stands for specific. So to give an example of a goal or a SMART goal that's not fully fleshed out, you would say, I want to get fit. We all want to get fit. We all want to run profitable businesses too. A better way of thinking of the goal is to say, I am going to register for a gym membership and work out 3 days a week for 1 hour. That is really specific. The more refined and the more specific you can get with your goal, the better. So my goal was to see craft techniques in Mexico City. So that's pretty specific. Measurable. So M is for measurable. What traveling to Mexico City will do for me is to inspire a new wallpaper collection. So this fall, I'm going to launch a wallpaper collection that's inspired by Mexico. And it will be because of my trip that I get to go and collect inspiration. Achievable. I have many resources and I'm saving for this. But what makes it easy to achieve is trying to figure out how can I make it happen? And I'll parse through that a little bit more in a second. The R is for either relevant or realistic. And I think achievable and realistic sometimes mean the same thing, but it's okay to have a really big goal so long as it's realistic. And it's also always important to stay relevant. So globally inspired patterns are the basis for Relativity Textiles. And it's relevant that I go to Mexico City because I need to design a new collection. I may as well go to a place where I have all these resources and it's nearby and it doesn't cost too much money and it's achievable to inspire this collection. So it's really, really relevant to what I do on a daily basis. And then the most important thing is time-based. So, you know, my coach helped me realize that unless I put a date on it and write it in my calendar, it's never going to happen. And I had an epiphany at one point where she said, what if you treated yourself like a dear friend? And I said, even better. What if I treated myself like a client? You know, we devote all our time to our clients and we make exceptions for our client, and we throw our kid with a nanny on a Saturday to go do a wallpaper measure or whatever it might be. We like bend over backwards for clients. What if you treated yourself in the same way? And it means that sometimes you do have to block out time for yourself, or you block out 1 hour a week for trip planning, or you block out 1 hour a week for researching your trip. If you don't write that on the calendar, it probably won't ever happen. And it will be that dream of going somewhere forever instead of being a reality of I'm going next month. So specific. So I wanted to see firsthand the traditions of Mexico. And I know that Design Week Mexico happens every October. I came to this, first of all, because I had a client, a husband and wife are both from Mexico, and they wanted a custom wallpaper. And I started researching Mexican textiles. At the same time, ironically, what happened is a friend of mine, Guinevere Johnson, who's also an Ivy, she is to Mexico as I am to Morocco. So she's been there many, many times. She learned the language and she has all of this expertise in Mexico. She proposed that we go on a trip similar to my Morocco trip to Mexico in October and attend Design Week. So what a great way to see all these craft processes, architecture, food, and everything inspirational all at once. The next part is that it's measurable. How can I get there? When you quantify your progress somehow, like you have a timeline or you have some kind of rubric, like, let me just read through my notes. When you have a way of measuring how close you are to reaching your goal, maybe it's just staring at your bank account and saying, okay, I know I need $3,000. I have $2,000 saved. I'm over halfway there. That's a great way to monitor your progress. Also, having a calendar set up where, you know, we've been planning this trip for over 6 months and we knew it was in October. So we knew that, okay, we're coming down to the wire. The trip is now 2 weeks away. We knew that we wanted to have about 10 people on our trip. We knew that without those program participants, we couldn't make it work. And so we had a really easy way to measure the success of were we going to make it happen or not. Okay, the next part, achievable. Your goal is a challenge, but is it still possible to achieve? Your goal has to be achievable. So the best goal you can set is something that's a stretch. It's not going to be something super easy, but it's not impossible. And interesting enough is when I did a little bit of reading about attainable or not, it says you can attain almost any goal when you set your plan with the steps and the time frame that allows you to carry out those steps. Goals that may have seemed far away, they eventually get closer to you and become attainable, not because the goals across Europe is for like young people, possibly do that. I don't have time. You're not even giving yourself room or permission to explore what it would take to get to that place. If you say like, I'm just so busy, my clients would never understand me taking 10 days off, you'll never grow and expand. You'll never reach that goal. That goal can never match you back. Does that make sense? So when you list out and you build your ambition and you find something that's a stretch, you actually build your self-image. You see yourself as worthy of the goal, and you develop the traits and personality that allow you to possess them. So if you don't think right now that you're a globetrotter or that you're savvy or that you can navigate in the middle of Japan without a guide, you might not be that person yet, but you will be surprised at about how, if you just figure out the steps to get to that point and you educate yourself enough and you ask enough people, that it's actually much easier than you think it is. But it has to be back to those like very first values that I shared. It has to be in line with your values. So you're not stretching to be someone you're not. You're not going to become a fashion blogger. I've already decided I'm never going to be a fashion blogger. It's not in line with my values. It doesn't hold any purpose for me. Do I have to sometimes do a photo shoot? Yes. But I'm never going to set that as my goal because it's not something I really want. So I think everyone that's here wants to travel more. They want to see the world. And for that reason, you're all here. The next part of the SMART goal is that it's relevant or realistic. Is this trip crucial to your mission statement as a person, as a brand? Is your goal relevant to your life's purpose? I know this all sounds very, macro, but if it doesn't fit in with your long-term plans to become like a rug vendor, or your long-term plan is to do a show house and you know that it opens in May and you know you need a rug for that one, if there's no long-standing reason why to go somewhere, if it's not going to propel you forward, it might not actually be relevant. Okay, interesting fact. A goal that you set that you think is so lofty. Like 3 years ago, I was like, I'm going to start a wallpaper company. And that was really crazy. No one expected to succeed, I'll tell you that much. A high goal is actually frequently easier to reach than a low one, because a low goal exerts low motivational force. So you're like, yeah, I'll get to it someday. If it's urgent and if it's important to you and you're passionate about it, you will be so surprised how scrappy and resourceful you become in order to make something happen that's a labor of love. So if you really want to learn Spanish, maybe traveling to Mexico City is a dream of yours, because you can do an immersive 5-day Spanish course. And then you'll be able to speak Spanish and you'll open yourself up to new clients, or you can translate your whole website into another language, something like that. The last part is time-based, and basically every time I meet with my coach, she's like, okay, and by what date do you promise to do this? So it's wonderful to have a long to-do list, like find a hotel, get some transportation, read all the blogs about where to stay, research the weather and what kinds of things to pack. But if you don't put it on the calendar, or if you don't give yourself a deadline, those types of things will either be really scrambled at the last minute, or they'll fall by the wayside, and then things won't progress the way you want them to. I hope I'm not skipping through this too quickly. Okay, so one thing that I highly suggest is that you build your trip around design-related events. Does that mean you always travel for an event? Not necessarily. But let's say, so if you're traveling for a trade fair or a show, it's written off by your company, or it's work related and you have to go anyway, you're meeting a vendor, you're seeing something. Can you plan a trip around that? For example, airfare from Maison Objet in Paris to Morocco is like $175, but airfare from New York to Morocco is around $900. So if Morocco is a place that you've always wanted to visit and you already know that you're going to Europe, maybe you offer an extension to your work trip, 5 days. In most cases, it will be easier, I believe, for an interior designer to think about the types of things they're currently sourcing. I have an example later in the presentation of this wonderful table that I found, and I was sourcing a coffee table that was unique for a client, and I couldn't find anything that I really liked until I came across this coffee table from a Mexican manufacturer, and I realized once I get to Mexico City, I can go to the showroom in Mexico. I can talk to people about how things are made, how much does it cost to ship, can it be customized, and meet the vendor one-on-one. I do think that looking through old articles, or new articles, obviously, of Elle Decor or Architectural Digest magazines, even travel magazines, they will always mention good places to eat, the best times to travel, what not to wear, or what kinds of hotels are wonderful. And so those are the kinds of things that can inform you planning your trip. Now, I know that Architectural Digest or Interior Design Magazine offers a trip to Morocco. You can go with one of their expert trip planners, and they do like a 30-person tour. It's $8,500 when you can get away with paying around $3,000 for 12 days. I think their tour is like 5 days. So it's insane how the spectrum of how people travel and how much money they have to spend to travel varies. But you can find a rough itinerary of where they're going, potentially what they're seeing, where they're staying. Many of these magazines have trips that they plan, and that's a great way to potentially just piggyback on a trip if you can afford it, and just go with one of these groups. I always like to ask my friends what's noteworthy. So when people found out I was going to Mexico City, they said, oh, don't forget to go here, skip this thing, it's really not that interesting, and make sure that you eat at this one restaurant. So always ask friends, have you know that someone has been to Japan, ask them what's good there. And then obviously, if you are sourcing things while you're traveling, reach out to your vendors. You don't know if when you're traveling, they're going to be out of town, if they have, maybe they're at Maison Objet, so they're already traveling somewhere else. It would be a shame for you to go to Italy to see blown glass and the vendor that you're trying to meet with is gone. It's such a huge missed opportunity. So reach out to them, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram, and just say, hey, I'm planning a trip. I'm coming on November 1st. Are you going to be there? Would it be possible to swing by the showroom? Could we have coffee? Or can I just plan to see X, Y, and Z? Sometimes they would offer to give you a tour of their manufacturing and extend themselves to you. So you would be surprised how a small communication with them could yield some great result. And then lastly, obviously museum shows, festivals, like, oh my gosh, there's a Picasso exhibit happening in Barcelona at this time. I'm gonna go for that reason because I don't wanna miss. Okay, so this is a funny title for a slide. But if we're all realistic with ourselves, we live in an Instagram world. Whether our life actually looks like our Instagram page or not, no one needs to know. But the reason why I suggest traveling with a photographer is because they're going to help you create months of content surrounding your 4-day trip or your 10-day trip that you would not be able to create while you're sourcing, while you're shopping, while you're tying your shoe, while you're looking at a map trying to get around, or just gaining inspiration. So like these examples here, Marley, who's taking a picture on her phone, probably got a great snap, but that's one picture. I'll show you after the presentation's over the website that our photographer created for us, Carolina. She gave over 800 photos that we were all able to access and use for the purpose of our marketing, our websites, our social media, any brochures, even just showing clients what we experienced. And we get to share that content for forever, basically. And she really has a trained eye. Plus, she has an ability to store all of those photos. And so what I will do is, in the event that we have enough people on the tour and a budget for that, is that I will pay for the photographer to come. The ladies on my trip to Morocco actually pooled together some stipend for Carolina so that she was paid for delivering the photos. But aside from that, I wanted to offer to pay for her rooms, her lodging, her transportation, her meals, so that she was compensated in some way. I mean, obviously, when you're traveling a little bit on a shoestring, you can just offer for them to stay in your room. So you don't have to pay for a second hotel room. So Carolina stayed with me, and we traveled with a professional photographer. So she's capturing the trip from the eye of someone looking at you as opposed to from your own eye, so that you can do what you're there to do, which is source and get inspired and hang out with your friends. I mean, look at Lori and Rebecca. They look so beautiful. and it was sort of an impromptu headshot that they can use for they're the Kitchen Design Network, so they can use those pictures for forever. It doesn't have to be Morocco specific. Okay, so one thing that's really important to me is to have an element of service or collaboration with local people in some way. And a lot of times people say like, well, how do you do that? How do you find an organization to help? What do you bring with you? Do you have to give money? So I'm just going to break that down a little bit. There are certain places where you can find NGOs listed, like the sites below at justice.gov and Human Rights Watch. But an NGO is a non-governmental organization. In some cases, it was started by expats or foreigners. In some cases, it started in the country by local people, but it's not funded by the government. So think about the underserved communities that you care about, whether it's girls and keeping them in school, or whether it's providing sports equipment to children or school supplies to children, if it's microeconomies for women, if it's LGBTQ related, if it's you know, housing, clean water, sanitation, these kinds of things that you're already interested in your own city, take that and adapt it to travel and say, okay, I'm going to bring 12 soccer balls with me. Obviously, hopefully they're deflated and you can pack them in a suitcase, but I want to be able to distribute those to kids as we go from town to town, or as I just see people outside the hotel begging for money. How much better would it be if you're a child who's skipping school to get money to get a new soccer ball or to get new notebooks? So what we usually do is we try and find a school or a weaving collaborative where we find women who are supporting themselves and their families making carpets. And interestingly enough, then you have a direct link to your vendor. If it's Fatima who lives in Nakob, like this woman in the picture and her organization, we actually painted this mural in 2009, I believe, and it's still there to this day, needs to be repainted. You know, you can buy a carpet for like $40 and it's going to support Fatima's family for an entire month. So not only did you do some good, but you got your carpet, and in return, you didn't pay the 7 middlemen that it took to get that carpet to the big city. So you kind of hit 2 birds with 1 stone. I really suggest for people to go off the beaten path if it's safe, to find, you know, a village for the day, or to find an organization that's not in the center of town. And in some cases, you can ask at your hotel, is there a school that we could visit? In most cases, people know enough friends and family members that they can make a call and help you schedule some kind of visit. These are some pictures. We were very lucky to be a part of Project SOAR in Marrakesh. It's run by Miriam Montague, who is sort of a design mogul in her own right. Her hotel and home called Peacock Pavilion has been featured in Elle Decor and many, many magazines. I actually was lucky to have some of my wallpaper included in her hotel. And, you know, she also runs this organization for girls and keeping them in school, keeping them physically fit, doing art activities, keeping them engaged, and giving them a place called Project SOAR. And interestingly enough, her curriculum for arts-based programs was adopted by the Peace Corps and is now taught in 19 different locations all over the country of Morocco. So these little girls had fun cutting paper with us, and it was just such a special experience to get to know them for the day, and also be there to shop till we drop. It's like a feel-good moment that sort of compensates for you just spending lots of money and being a tourist most of the time that you're there. Okay, so, I think the real reason why Tara asked me to do this webinar is that I think what's most relevant perhaps to an interior designer is how to find a trusted vendor abroad and how to build those relationships over time. I don't particularly think that you need to visit a country like Morocco just to be able to get to source a couple rugs. But if you're planning a travel trip and you want to establish some relationships, here's a couple of keys that I've found over time. The closer to the source, the better. So that personal connection or the shaking hands or the visiting the place where it's made is always going to get you a little bit more information, get you a closer bond with the salesperson. Remember, the salesperson's also trying to make a living. So although they've marked up that carpet 3 times because it was sold to them by so-and-so and he bought it from Fatima, having that hands-on approach with your vendor, even if it's the end point, maybe it means sitting for an hour in the shop, having tea with that person, helping them pull the rugs out of the stack, even though they're not going to want to let you. It's just showing that you're human, getting to know them a little bit. We probably spent like 6 hours once in a rug shop with designers that were buying rugs for themselves, for projects, and for the hypothetical next client because they couldn't resist leaving a very special carpet in the showroom. And by the end, we were exchanging phone numbers, and WhatsApp is a very popular app there for messaging to other countries because they don't have text and data like in the same way that we do in Morocco. So we exchanged numbers with our vendor, and he still, like every month or two, will say, "Hi, Erin, how are you? How's everything going? Do you need anything right now?" And I will try and remember on certain holidays just to send him warm wishes so that if in a year I need 10 carpets or 1 carpet, I can just text him and say, "Hey, do you have a purple rug that's 8 by 10? And he'll send me pictures of what he has. So Google won't likely help you with artisans. Google's great for finding a map or what the weather is going to be like, but it's not going to, most of these small businesses don't have a great web presence. Some of them have Instagram, but most of them you will not find a fully fleshed out website. I do definitely suggest that you reach out to brands on Instagram, and I've done this once, and I'll tell you a little story about it. But do personally message people on Instagram and say, "Hey, I see that you were just in, Mexico. I really love the scarves that you brought back. Do you have a source that you would be willing to share?" And in some cases, they will say yes. Also on Instagram, search hashtags. I've been really loving following Mexican modernism. So naively, I didn't realize that mid-century modern existed in other countries, that time period was not specific to America. And so these styles of furniture that we're very accustomed to were also being fabricated in Mexico. And some of the most beautiful chairs I've seen are coming from just following that hashtag. Also, I have a lot of friends who are artisans making furniture in the United States. So if you're looking for something like this, hashtag says brass inlay, you can search that hashtag and you'll find people all over the country, all over the world that are doing brass inlay in their furniture work. Okay, on the ground, I sometimes advise be wary when someone says, "Oh, I know a guy, let me take you to his shop." In a lot of cases, what that means is my cousin owns a rug shop or my neighbor owns a rug shop and they're trying to make a commission for themselves. So again, going back to ask someone that went there and bought something and had a good experience. It's sort of like the Yelp reviews of travel, is that if someone had a great experience, you want to know who their guy was, as opposed to on the street, like you ask your taxi driver, do you know any antique dealers? And he takes you to his brother's shop. I always say that people who are willing to involve you in their process and want to show you how something's made, they're generally very proud of the work that they do. And so when I would sometimes shy away, this is just my personal opinion, I would shy away from the vendors that don't want to show you the behind the scenes. They just have the storefront. Nothing's being made on site. They don't want to tell you where it came from. They're claiming to be the person who made it. This is especially true for Morocco, but you can go to these little craft centers where you get to see leather being dyed, and then in the shop is the leather purse or the boots. Making that connection to like where things came from, much like this picture of the stone quarry and seeing the countertops all pretty and buffed. It's a big value. It's a big value to you to be able to see that process and how it's made, because it's somehow more trustworthy. Okay, so the showroom versus the spec sheet. I do also suggest that some of the showrooms that you frequent here in the US, depending what city you're in, if you're in Atlanta to ADAC, if you're in Chicago to the Merchandise Mart, the D&D building in New York, if you find a showroom that has furniture and lighting and you can ask, do you have anything that comes from Mexico? Do you have anything that's fabricated in Mexico? One of the nice things I found is that I went to CAI Designs in Chicago, and I fell in love with this table. I fell in love with this coffee table, and I realized it was from Mexico. And it was right around the time that I began planning for Mexico City. And I realized that I can actually go to this showroom or call or meet with the vendor and potentially even see how this table was made, who made it, and hear the story behind the design of the object rather than just shopping a catalog. So I do suggest that you ask your US-based showrooms if they have leads for vendors, because you're going to travel to that place. Okay. This kind of goes back to reaching out to people on Instagram. Ask and maybe you'll receive. Some of your favorite Instagram people will be generous with sharing their sources, and Samika Textiles was one. Her former handle was Hamlet Interiors. She was very, very generous with me in talking about Morocco and how she got involved with sourcing carpets in Morocco, how she ships carpets in Morocco, what her price point is typically in Morocco. And I told her that I had been back to Morocco 15 times and I spoke Arabic and I was accustomed to bargaining and all of the sort of cultural intricacies of buying in a foreign place. And she was so impressed and amazed that I knew all of those details and that I was so hands-on. But what was interesting is that, you know, her brand is so much bigger than mine. Her bread and butter is selling rugs. I think she realized that I wasn't going to try and repeat and replicate her business model just because I was asking questions about how she sources and where she sources. I didn't just out of the blue say, hey, can I have the number and address of the person who you buy your rugs from? I was just saying, hi, I'm curious about how you source things. Would you ever want to co-lead a trip with me to Morocco? How did you get started? It was almost like I was interviewing her. And she was very generous. She's like, hey, my kids are running around in the background. And we were just messaging back and forth. So my philosophy on sharing sources comes from a Buddhist proverb, which is that thousands of candles can be lit from my flame and my flame won't go out, you know. So if I share with someone who is an aspiring textile designer where my wallpaper is manufactured, it's a little bit risky, right? Because maybe they have all this capital and they're going to go start making wallpaper, and they're going to take all my manufacturer's time, and he'll never have any more time for me, and I'll be at the bottom of the list because they became this big, huge company. It's not that likely that that's going to happen. Most likely they probably just want to make one thing, or get their feet wet, or get started, or call and ask questions about how much it costs, and a year from now they might produce a collection. I don't think that it's so cut and dry that if you give away your sources, then all your magical industry secrets will be revealed and no one will buy anything from you anymore. I don't think it's true that like there can't be 25 wallpaper designers that all make wallpaper at the same place that I do, and that we can't all succeed. I believe we can. So if in fact you ask and you do receive that information, you're about 50%. You're one of like 50% of people that found a generous lead. So might as well try, might as well ask and see what people's response is. Okay, so in closing, when you're in a place and you want to figure out how to get things back to your home city, I think people believe that there's like some magical answer for how to ship things internationally that's really easy. There's not. There's 3 companies that we all know of, DHL, FedEx, and UPS, where in most cases when you're traveling abroad, unless it's a really rural or remote place, you're going to be able to find someone that has a FedEx number or a DHL number, and there's a pickup center and they ship things. So you can always just start by saying, can you ship this to me? And they'll say yes. You don't know how long it's going to take. You can't get an immediate quote because you're not logged into an app, and they might not be logged in on their computer. So there's a lot of variables that are a little bit not sketchy, but you don't have as much information as we typically, like in the age of Amazon Prime, we want everything immediate and we want to track it all the time. So what I strongly suggest is that you set up a DHL account in your business name, you give them your tax ID number, you set it up as a business account, set up a FedEx account, set up a UPS account, so that when you go abroad, you have all the options available. And when you ask that rug dealer, can you ship this? They say, yes, but your $600 rug that you just bought will cost $700 to ship. Why don't you ship it on my account and we'll see how much it costs. And I can also track it real time. As I'm on the plane landing in New York, I can see that my rug hasn't even left Morocco yet. So those are 3 things that I think any business owner can do. I think if you're an individual and you don't have a business license yet, you can still set up a UPS and FedEx account. It's just you won't receive discounts for shipping in bulk, or however many times a month you ship as a business owner, your prices go down. But DHL will give you an import number and they'll also give you an export number. I don't imagine that you're going to then ship those rugs out of the country once you've imported them, but you do definitely need the import number. And so you can just give that to your vendor, whether it's in Mexico City and you want to ship the table back, or the rug vendor in Morocco. You'd be surprised how nowadays everything is on their phones. We all have access to lots of things through mobile. Also, I do suggest doing a little bit of research. So if you do have a FedEx account and you want to know how much does it cost to ship something that's 70 pounds from Mexico City, maybe you input the address of that showroom or the manufacturer, and you want to know how much would it typically cost to get something back of this weight and size. You can quote yourself before you even go. Or you can quote yourself the night before you visit the furniture manufacturer so that you know when you go in there and you say, I don't think it's going to be $700 to ship that rug. I think it's going to be $175. And you're trying to make a commission off of me on the shipping. That's when you can be educated when you arrive. And also, I would suggest, it depends on how much stuff you're trying to bring back, right? Like if you can fit it in a suitcase and it's a really heavy, big rolling suitcase, we used to always go to like TJ Maxx or Ross and get a $50 enormous suitcase that's going to go get checked on the plane. We'd bring it empty to Morocco, pack it full of rugs, and then ship it back. Even with the overages of like baggage or large baggage or heavy baggage, so it's going to be $100, right? At least it gets to Chicago and I pick it up at the carousel rather than paying $700 to get it back. So if it will fit in a suitcase, that's always your best bet. But you can also find a broker in your town. So for shipping wallpaper, I have to ship all of the paper from New Jersey to Chicago to get printed. And I have a broker called C.H. Robinson, and they will get you a quote from 5 different freight companies. All of them are sending semi trucks from New Jersey to Chicago, and they're going to put your one pallet in the back of the truck with tons of other companies' goods, and they'll give you a quote. So someone will say it's $200 and someone will say it's $100, and I'll usually go with the cheapest quote. So if you can find a broker, ask them about international freight, ask them if they do importing, ask them if they can help you quote how much it would cost for a package of, whatever dimensions, X dimensions and X weight, and see if you can't do a little bit of your homework beforehand. The key to this slide is the last 2 paragraphs, which is you're not going to become an importer overnight. You're not going to know all the intricacies of this type of shipping. You're not going to probably be able to pack an entire container full of 2 houses worth of furniture and get it back unless you do a tremendous amount of research and you have a little bit of capital to get everything through customs, possibly hire a company to sort all of that out for you. So I'm definitely not at the level where I'm shipping containers full of furniture and rugs back from Morocco, but I think the best way for you to do it is to start small, start with that empty suitcase or start with that one package that's going to get shipped DHL, and establish that relationship with your vendor. Tell him, look, in 6 months, I'm going to need 10 more of these. Will you give me a deal if I do volume with you throughout the year? And sort of negotiate those shipping terms gradually. And that's my last slide. So we covered a ton of information. I'm looking forward to hearing what your guys' questions are. And I think Tara's going to be the one to kind of field a lot of those questions. So Tara, why don't you come back in here and tell us what you think.
Yes.
Reading through some of those comments.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much. I'm so inspired. I need to get on one of your sourcing trips ASAP.
Nice.
A lot of questions coming in about that. Oh, I hear an echo. Sorry. A bunch of people are asking, when is your next trip and where are you going? How can you go?
When is your next trip? Well, okay, so I am sharing my screen with you guys. I'm going to give you a couple little clues. So Relativity Travel was a sub-brand that came out of Relativity Textiles. Because I have a globally inspired wallpaper company, I thought, and our tagline is bring the world home. I thought, why not bring people to the world? Since I'm going anyway, I wanted to sort of shepherd more people to have those wonderful paradigm shifts I had when I was 17 and realized that the globe is enormous and not everyone looks like the people I typically saw in Salt Lake City, Utah. And so Relativity Travel is something I was already kind of doing. It was something that I ran as a business for high school tours long ago. And now we have upcoming trips. There's some testimonials about past trips, like the Morocco trip I was talking about. In 2 weeks, we're going to Mexico City. I believe there's 2 more spots left for this trip. So if you guys want to pack your bags very quickly and get on board with us, it would be wonderful to have more designers, more Ivies, more design enthusiasts come to Mexico City and eat lots of wonderful Mexican food and drinks and see the architecture. This will give you all the information about where are we going, what are we going to see while we're there, et cetera, et cetera. So you can request a travel guide. Here's myself and Guinevere Johnson, who we're co-leading this trip, and you can get all the information there. The other place that I would suggest visiting is our Instagram page, where we have lots and lots of inspiration from all over the world. And we do talk a little bit about, when I say we, I mean me. I talk a lot about the places that I've been and different inspiration that I have. Some of it, like this, was in San Francisco. Some of these are borrowed from Travel and Leisure magazine and all of the sexy, seductive pictures you can see. But this one, for example, is my rug dealer in Marrakesh. So he's sending me pictures from time to time of different carpets he has. This is a great place to sort of see some inspiration.
Great. So 2 more slots on the Mexico City trip. So there's still I'll send through Erin's that if you want to sign up, you can. Erin, do you have any plans for a potential Morocco trip?
Okay, I can, you're breaking up a little bit, but I think what you said is, when's the next trip to Morocco?
Yes.
Okay, so it's funny, I'm trying to tell you guys how to go to Morocco. We are going to run another trip to Morocco probably in March, and I'm still deciding whether or not to run it the way we did in 2017. Yeah, 2017, we had 12 days. So we saw 4 or 5 different cities, and it was really like kind of rushing through the entire country, seeing all the craft processes. And we rode a camel in the Sahara Desert. I think that picture, that if I go back, is like my feet and on the dunes. We did a lot in 12 days. It was really hard for people to take 12 days off. So I'm considering only doing Marrakesh and just doing 5 days. It's mainly going to be shopping and seeing the sites in Marrakesh, but I would like to do another trip that's 12 days long. It completely depends on the interest of people that are signing up. So if someone wants to organize, oh, I have 2 friends and we're all going, we basically just need a group of 10 people in order to get on the plane and go. So email me, but all the information you need is on that website, relativitytravel.com, and there's a way even to contact me and request more information.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And 1 second, I'm gonna put in my headphones.
Okay. So I'll just scroll through while you're getting ready. These are a couple pictures from our trip, but I wanted to share with you the format that Carolina Rodriguez sends us, all of these beautiful images once we're done with the trip, and you can download any of these photos. So you can see she just has like a very beautiful eye and just a way of capturing things as an artist would, that we can't quite replicate with our dinky little phones. This was Peacock Pavilion where we stayed. It's just a beautiful, beautiful place. So see, like I use this headshot in everything I do for the last 18 months because it's just so pretty and well done. And I never would have gotten, there's me with my sunglasses. I never would have gotten those pictures if it wasn't for Carolina being on our trip. So highly worth it. If you're going to splurge on something, hire a photographer.
Great, thank you. Erin, I'm going to ask this question. Will you just mute your computer for a second to avoid that?
mute my computer? Yeah.
Testing. Perfect. Thanks, everyone. We have, not working. It's okay. So we have one more question for you, Erin.
Yes.
How do you recommend interior designers to go on sourcing trips when they're in the middle of a design project or multiple projects? Like, how do you recommend them prioritizing time for these types of trips?
So it's one thing that I didn't remember to say, but yeah, why would a designer want to go on a trip? How do they get the time? I really think that it's a way to differentiate yourself as a designer, to say, oh, I'm going to Japan and I'm going to be sourcing some tie-dye fabric for your love seat that I'm going to reupholster, or you're making it specifically about their project, as if it's the reason that you're going is to help them come up with a unique creative solution to the design. Plus, you get to sort of pitch yourself as a storyteller. It's not like you're going to do an entire India themed room, but if you're going to India, you are going to be sourcing block printed fabrics, let's say. So I think you position yourself as a collector or a curator, or like this kind of globally inspired expeditioner. It's about that story that my designer not only went to the merchandise mart and found me a beautiful fabric. My designer went to China and found me this antique buffet. So those are the kinds of like one of a kind, unique situations where I believe that your customer, your client, your homeowner would say, sure, take 10 days off to go to China to source all these different things for me, because you're going to come back with these amazing treasures that will be mine, you know? So it's sort of this like modern day Silk Road, modern day trade route. Except you're just like flying over there, buying a bunch of stuff and DHLing it back. It's like you have a personal curator. And so if you can somehow position yourself with that kind of language in your contract or in your initial meeting, I specifically also really like to ask my homeowners when I do a design project, what's your background? Oh, your mother's from Nicaragua. Wouldn't it be so cool to pull in like, a tapestry? And then they get to connect to it personally. Even if your great-great-great-grandfather was from Portugal, that would be a really great way to sort of say, I'm doing this specifically for you. I'm trying to connect the dots for you and make it special.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this definitely gives you a competitive edge as a designer. I highly recommend all of you reach out to Erin. She's so impressive. I'm typing in her website here. It's travel.relativitytextiles.com to learn more about her travel trips. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today for you, Erin, but thank you so much for your generosity and for contributing your knowledge and wisdom and inspiring all of us today. This has been one of my favorite webinars to date, so thank you so much. And
no problem. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And we hope to see you soon. And now I'm actually going to welcome my colleague Risa on, who is going to walk through the Ivy software and show designers what Ivy is all about. So bye, Erin. Thank you so much for your time today. We'll see you soon.
Bye, ladies. Hi, Risa. Bye. Nice wallpaper.
Yes.
See you soon, guys.
Relativity Textiles.
Yes. So thank you so much, Erin. Yes, I love my wallpaper. I like to say that I'm a trendsetter by having this wallpaper up here. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about Ivy. I'm really excited. Erin has been using Ivy since the very beginning, and we really want you to be able to manage and track all of those amazing purchases. I'm actually going to Morocco in just a month. So I've been hitting Erin up. Definitely, she has a lot of really good information, but it always ties back to, okay, I've bought all this stuff. What's the process? How do I put this into my proposal? And for those of you who don't know what Ivy is a community and business management tool used to streamline your overall workflow and really centralize all of the moving parts. So you should be able to see my screen right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little bit about how this can work for you, how you can track your time while you're abroad and sourcing, and how you can really make more time for design. So really quickly, tracking time, everybody's biggest nightmare, something that no designers like doing. Right here, there's a little time clock where you can just click in. And of course, we just rolled out an app. We're going to be adding more features to our app as well. For now, you can track your time and manage all of your to-do list items. And you can select the project that you're working on, select the service that you're providing, and then you can add in client meeting or client sourcing, whatever you're doing. And then let the timer tick. You can go in. You can also just update the time if you just want to say, okay, I know I worked 3 hours. You can do that as well. And you can always mark it non-billable if you're on a flat fee or you don't want to bill the client for those hours. But I see a lot of designers really burning themselves on hours. So please make sure that you track your time. That will help you run a more profitable interior design business. And then, and again, you can do this while you're abroad. You can do it while you're on the go. And you can go into your time billing section of your Ivy account, go into the project that you're working on, select that little button. It will grab all of the uninvoiced time, and then you can go ahead and generate an invoice. And the good thing is that the invoice actually looks highly professional, organized. It's on brand, it has your logo, and when you click into this, just so you can see what it looks like to your client can actually pay you by bank transfer or credit card. Bank transfer, there's a 1.2% processing fee, and credit card, there's a 3% processing fee. And with that said, what a lot of designers will do is they'll just roll that in to the cost of doing business. So you get paid in 2 to 3 business days. Your clients love it because they can pay you. Your accounts receivable is down. It's kind of a win-win for everybody involved. You're not sitting on these invoices or waiting for a check to come. It just makes your business overall more efficient. And again, the idea behind Ivy is really what can we do to help you be more profitable? So that's where the Ivy Clipper, if you don't know about it, you should, comes in very handy. It allows you, say you're sourcing for this amazing wallpaper, and I have this little Ivy Clipper that allows me to clip right into the picture that I want to grab, and I can just go down, I can clip the product title, I can clip all of the items so that I can have this item right into my Ivy product library. I can categorize it. I can add my cost and my markup. Say I want it to be $425. It will calculate the markup for you. You can add your vendor right here. And then you can add it directly to a project, and you can add all of the vendor details, the dimensions, the description, the vendor SKU. So you are just clipping the information. It takes little to no time to do this, and you can save the product. It saves right into your product library so that when I go to create my proposal, or say you're sourcing abroad and you're looking, you're finding all these items, take pictures, you can add them to your product library. Maybe you bought some inventory, add them to your library. So when you're going to create that proposal, it saves you time by not having to source through or file through your inbox and finding the link. It's very easy for you to just create a new proposal, and then the item pops up right here. And you can also search other items in your product library. So I could type in sofa, and all of the sofas that I've added to my library will show up. You can also add service items. So maybe it's a window covering install. Maybe you have some freight labor you want to add there. And then what's great about this, when you put this together, is that you can see your total cost and you can see your markup. So I don't know, but this doesn't look like a very healthy gross profit margin to me. You're charging $7,400 and you're only making $755. So then it helps you keep track, and you can just go in and maybe you forgot to add a purchase fee in there, and now you can look and that looks a little bit more healthy. You can also request a certain deposit. And then from here, you can actually generate your own custom tear sheets with your logo and your branding. So again, these are the things that take designers time away and make you spend, 90% of your time doing administrative work and 10% of your time designing. We would like to flip those percentages for you. We want you to be designing 90% of the time and doing 10% by leveraging Ivy as kind of your virtual assistant. So if you click the three dots right here, and you click view tear sheets, this will allow you to generate your own custom tear sheets with your logo and your branding. So it just looks really professional. You can decide if you want to show pricing or not, and now you have your presentation for your client. Okay, you can also add attachments. You can add your contract, your letter of agreement, everything into here so that when your client clicks into their proposal right here, they can see the items nice and big, and they can also see their project dashboard with all of their outstanding invoices, paid invoices, and any attachments. So if they're like, oh, I forget what that chair looked like, they can just click right into the chair and that's what it looks like. So that's pretty user-friendly. And then from there, once they've paid, you can convert this to an invoice, and then you can also create your purchase order so that I can send my purchase order directly to Relativity Textiles. And she has all of the specs, all of the details in one place. I can't tell you how many vendors are receiving such piecemeal purchase orders from designers. And this really helps vendors also make sure that every detail on your order is correct and that there's no discrepancies. Okay, and you can plug in the date that it's supposed to ship, and then Ivy gives you a project management calendar as well. We call it our plan. And here you can see everything that's shipping for that client's project. You can see all of your to-do list items. You can also use Ivy instead of using Excel. You can say bye to Excel, and you can pop in here and you can add, this is the Bible of your project. All of the details of the sofa, you see your accounting, you can add scheduling dates, when it's shipped, when it's gonna be received, you can assign it to somebody on your team. You can say item is back ordered, you can add notes so that everybody on your team can really access this from one place, and all of your ducks are in a row. And then when you're ready to generate an FF&E schedule, Ivy will do that for you via PDF, or you can bounce it back out to Excel, totally up to you, and the way that you really manage your business. This is a game changer because I used to run an interior design company and I worked in between Harvest and Excel and QuickBooks Online, and I had a bookkeeper and it just felt really messy. Ivy really helps organize everything within your business. And then the best part is, if you want to, you can have Ivy sync. It's a one-way sync to your QuickBooks Online account. So your bookkeeper's happy, they get to stay in QuickBooks, and you as the designer get to stay in an interior design specific software. Kind of a happy medium for everybody. And then, of course, if you're transitioning over from another software, or you have a client list or a vendor list in Excel, you can easily import all of that information into your Ivy account. Super easy to do. We give you templates. And what I really love about the vendor portal is that it even saves your tags. So you can say like window treatments, and then you can just find easily who are all my window treatment vendors. And it also saves all of your account usernames and passwords as well, so that you don't have it written down on a post-it and then you change the password. If you change, somebody on your team changes the password, they know that they have to change it in Ivy too, so you don't have issues logging into your vendors' accounts. And then this is the product library that I was saying. It's really great. If you have a bunch of inventory, Ivy's not an inventory tracking system, but one-off pieces that you bought while you're abroad and traveling, whether it's Mexico, Morocco, you can actually just drop that item right into your Ivy account. So it's ready to put onto your proposal when your client is ready to order that product from you. Okay, and then of course, Ivy has reporting. One other way to run a profitable interior design business is really look at your numbers every single day. You can pull reports for transactions, project payments, purchase orders, time billing. You can also export any of your project trackers, and then setting up your Ivy account, pretty straightforward. we built this software to be very intuitive. You can add your team members, you can add your payment detail, you can sync up to QuickBooks if you want to, you don't have to. And you also get a dedicated account manager. So if you have questions, you have a person behind your back. We always have your back. We get back to you relatively fast, I would say within 24 to 48 hours. And it's a real person, not just a computer automated response. It's an actual person. So we just ask you be generous with their time as well. And we have a whole landing page of training videos. And of course, this is just a high level walkthrough today, but we want to get to know your firm one-on-one. So please go ahead, send us an email. I'm going to give you my email. It's risa@ivy.co. And I'm going to give you a link to schedule time with us so that we can go through, share screens with you, understand and learn about your particular business, and really give you that complimentary time so that you have that one-on-one demo. And then you also, once you do decide to try it out, the first 30 days, you can pay, but if you don't like it, you'll get your money back. But after that, you do get that activation call. So you get a lot of one-on-one time with our team to really understand how to set everything up, because I know changing systems can be very overwhelming, very daunting, but we want to make the process easy for you. And Tara did mention we're all about community. We urge you to join our Facebook group. If you're on Ivy and you're not yet part of our Facebook group, please get on there. I talked to some designers this morning that weren't on there. They're going to join right away. Lots of sharing of proprietary documents, proprietary LOAs, contracts, documents that have taken designers tons and tons of time to create that they're sharing with you. We really believe in the community over competition aspect. We do industry webinars like this. So if there's any topics that you want to hear about, definitely let us know. We seek out the best business coaches, accountants, interior design lawyers, master sorcerers like Erin from Relativity to bring this content to you to really answer your questions. So please, please, please. Also, one other way to outsource or to leverage an Ivy to run a profitable interior design business is really leveraging our Discover section, leveraging the fact that we have experts that can do 3D renderings for you. If you don't have time to do your drawings, you can outsource this. These are all Ivy vetted. They're designers that also just do drawings. So contact them and leverage them. And there's photographers, there's great recommendations. So you don't have to go to Yelp. You can really just go to Ivy and we can help you take your business to the next level. So I'm gonna wrap up there. I know there might be some questions, but we did keep you for a very long time today. So I do apologize. And I'm gonna thank you all so much for joining us. And we really appreciate you being here. And if you do have questions, just make sure to send us an email. We'll set you up on your one-on-one call, and really excited to share Ivy with you. And thanks for having us and letting us spend your morning with you.
Thank you, Risa. And I put in the chat here a link to schedule a demo. So we understand there's a lot of information, but we want to be able to answer all of your questions relevant to how you specifically run your business. We know everyone runs their business a little bit differently, so please go ahead and schedule a demo. And for those of you who are going to High Point Market, we're actually going to be 2 events. Risa, do you want to tell everyone about the events that we'll be hosting at High Point?
Yes, if you are going to High Point, we would love to have you. If you don't know me, I'm love to put together really amazing, enriching, educational panels that are very exciting and sometimes never ending, and there's so many questions. So definitely on October 14th, it's the Sunday of High Point at 3 p.m. We'll be at Abbeyson with Christopher Kennedy, Ann Sage, Liza Coors, and Jackie Von Tobel sharing the successful ingredients to building a profitable interior design business, kind of all angles, building your business in a box and hearing from these industry experts. And then the following morning, on Monday morning, we have a quick talk with Christopher Kennedy and Jeannie Chung about getting show house ready. I don't know if you know, but there's actually a show house happening at High Point Market this year. So we're super excited to be partnering with Zuo for that Monday event, and I'll be at High Point Friday night to Monday morning, so definitely send me an email. I would love to meet you in person. I do know a lot of our designers, but I'm always looking to meet more designers, so please come to our event Sunday at 3 and Monday at 9 a.m. It's early.
Thank you, Risa. We hope to see you there. We'll also send you an email with the recording of this webinar, and then we'll also send you a separate email with the invites for the High Point events so you can RSVP and join us. That's all the time we have today, but thank you everyone for tuning in and staying with us. Risa, thank you, and we'll see you soon. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.